What if everything you've been chasing, happiness, success, meaning, isn't what you actually want? What if fulfillment has nothing to do with getting more but with seeing differently? Today we're going deep into 5 philosophical secrets that will completely change how you experience life. This isn't about abstract theories. This is about why you feel the way you do every single day and why most people never find what they're looking for. Let's start with something strange. Who are you? No, really, what exactly is the you that you think you are? Your name is just a label. Your thoughts change constantly. Your memories are unreliable stories your brain pieces together. The thing you call yourself is not one fixed thing. It's a shifting, flowing process. The Buddha realized this thousands of years ago, and modern neuroscience backs it up. There is no central, unchanging you, but here's where things get intense. This illusion of a solid self is the reason people suffer. We spend our lives chasing things we think will complete us, but how can you complete something that was never fixed to begin with? This is why nothing ever feels like it's enough. You get what you want, and then immediately want something else. Ancient philosophers like Epicurus saw this trap clearly. He said most of our desires aren't real needs, they're illusions. We think we want wealth, but what we really want is security. We think we want fame, but what we actually crave is love. We think we want power, but deep down, we just want to feel in control of our own lives. And the cruel joke is, every time we get what we desire, the satisfaction disappears. This is called the hedonic treadmill. No matter how much you achieve, your brain adapts and asks for more. This is why millionaires still chase more money and celebrities with everything still feel empty. They're running on this treadmill, never realizing they're stuck in place. The way out isn't in chasing more. It's in shifting how you see what's already in front of you. The Stoics had a concept called amor fati, which means loving fate, not wishing for things to be different, but fully embracing life as it is. The moment you stop running, you realize you were already there.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And this brings us to the second secret. Where is the past? Can you touch it? Can you visit it? No, it's just a memory, a story your brain tells itself. Where is the future? Can you go there? No, it's just a projection, a mental construct. The only thing that actually exists is right now. And yet, most people spend their entire lives trapped in time, regretting the past, worrying about the future, never fully living in the only moment that's real. Alan Watts said we experience time as a kind of hallucination. We treat life like a journey with a destination, always trying to get somewhere, but where do you think you're going? There is no final destination in life except death. If you're always living for tomorrow, you'll never actually live. Imagine listening to a song and instead of enjoying it, you're just waiting for it to end. That would be insane, right? But that's exactly how most people live. They rush through their days, trying to achieve something, never realizing that the point of life isn't to reach the end, it's to experience the music while it's playing. This is why so many people feel trapped. They think freedom is something they have to earn. Once I have enough money, I'll be free. Once I retire, I'll be free. Once I find the right person, I'll be free, but freedom isn't in the future. It's in realizing that right now, in this very moment, you are already free. The hidden power of suffering and why it's the key to fulfillment. Most people think the goal of life is to avoid suffering, but what if the opposite is true? What if suffering isn't something to escape, but something to understand? Every single person will face pain, loss, failure, and disappointment, yet most people spend their lives running from these things, pretending they don't exist. numbing themselves with distractions. But what if suffering isn't the enemy? Nietzsche had a radical idea. He believed that suffering, far from being meaningless, was actually the path to greatness. He called it amor fati, the love of fate, not just accepting the painful moments in life, but embracing them fully. Every person you admire, every great thinker, artist, or leader went through immense suffering. And yet, instead of breaking them, it shaped them. The difference between those who crumble under pain and those who grow from it isn't luck, it's perspective. Pain is like fire. It can burn you, or it can forge you into something stronger. Think about this. Why do people who have never faced real struggle often feel lost, anxious, or empty? It's because without struggle, there is no meaning. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, wrote that the people who survived the horrors of concentration camps weren't the strongest physically. They were the ones who found meaning in their suffering. He saw that humans can endure almost anything if they believe it has purpose. And that's the secret. Suffering isn't something that happens to you. It's something that happens for you if you let it. The worst experiences in your life can be the very things that make you wiser, deeper, and more alive, but only if you stop resisting them. Now, what does this mean for your life? It means that instead of constantly trying to avoid pain, you start asking what it's teaching you. Instead of seeing suffering as a problem, you see it as a guide. Every moment of discomfort, every failure, every heartbreak is shaping you into something more, but only if you let it. Most people try to escape pain by numbing themselves, scrolling endlessly on social media, binge watching shows, buying things they don't need, chasing temporary highs. But none of these things fix the problem. They just delay it. The only way out of suffering is through it. The moment you stop running from pain and start facing it with curiosity instead of fear, everything changes. Because pain itself isn't what makes us suffer, it's our resistance to it. When you stop seeing suffering as the enemy, you realize it was actually trying to teach you something all along. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain. But avoiding pain is what makes life feel meaningless. The more you run from discomfort, the weaker you become. The more you avoid struggle, the more fragile your mind gets. The people who have everything handed to them, who never face real adversity, often feel the most lost. That's because meaning isn't found in comfort, it's found in challenge. The ancient Stoics knew this well. Seneca said that hardships are like the gym for the soul. Just like a muscle only grows when it's pushed to its limit, the mind only becomes stronger when it faces real difficulty. The modern world is designed to make life easier, to remove friction, to give instant gratification at all times. But that's exactly why depression and anxiety are higher than ever. When everything is easy, nothing feels worth it. Struggle is what gives life weight. Every great story, every hero, every person who has ever achieved something meaningful, they all went through deep suffering. The difference is, they didn't see it as a curse. They saw it as fuel. The mind is strange. It adapts to whatever environment it's in. When you constantly seek comfort, your mind shrinks to fit that level of challenge. Small problems feel like big problems. Minor inconveniences feel unbearable. But when you intentionally embrace difficulty, when you push yourself into discomfort on purpose, your mind expands. You stop complaining about little things because you faced bigger things. This is why people who train physically, who expose themselves to cold, who discipline themselves with hard tasks, often have a stronger sense of peace. They don't run from struggle, they invite it. And something incredible happens when you do this. Fear loses its power over you. Most people are controlled by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of pain. But fear is just a signal. It's telling you where growth is. The things you're afraid of are usually the things that would make you stronger if you face them. The problem is, most people never do. They avoid discomfort at all costs, and in doing so, they make their world smaller and smaller. But there's a way out. Instead of seeing fear as a stop sign, you see it as a compass. Whatever you're most afraid of doing, that's probably exactly what you need to do next. And this brings us to the fourth secret. Most people think happiness is about getting what they want, but that's not true. Happiness is about wanting what you have. There's a reason why some people with nothing feel content while others with everything feel empty. It's not about the external world, it's about how you see it. Buddhists call this attachment, and it's the root of all suffering. The more you cling to things, the more you fear losing them, and the more you suffer when they change. But everything changes. Nothing is permanent. The people you love, the things you own, even your own body, none of it stays the same. If your happiness depends on things staying the way you want them to, you will always be afraid. But there is another way. Instead of clinging, you let go. Instead of resisting change, you flow with it. The Japanese have a concept called wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection, the acceptance of transience. When you stop wishing for things to be different than they are, you realize that life was never the problem. Your resistance to it was. True peace isn't found in controlling everything. It's found in surrendering to what already is. Most people live trapped in their own expectations, believing that fulfillment is just one achievement away. But no matter how much they get, the feeling never lasts. The problem isn't that life is lacking something, the problem is the way they see it. Happiness isn't found in more, it's found in less. Less attachment, less resistance, less chasing. The more you try to force life to fit your idea of how it should be, the more you suffer. But when you stop fighting reality, something shifts. You start noticing the things you used to ignore. You realize that the small, ordinary moments, the sunlight hitting your face, the warmth of a conversation, the sound of the wind were what you were looking for all along. The constant race to the next thing made you blind to what was already in front of you. The final secret to fulfillment isn't about adding anything to your life. It's about subtracting the illusions that keep you from seeing clearly. Most people are asleep, moving through life on autopilot, reacting instead of living. They wake up, go through the motions, scroll through distractions, and wonder why they feel empty. But the truth is, they've never actually been present. They've never really paid attention. When was the last time you sat in silence with no distractions? When was the last time you looked at a tree, at the sky, at another human being, without your mind rushing to the next thing? The present moment is the only thing that exists, but most people miss it completely. They live in their heads, lost in thoughts about the past and future, never realizing that life is happening right now. Enlightenment isn't some mystical state, it's just seeing reality without filters. It's realizing that nothing is missing, that nothing needs to be different for you to be at peace. But peace doesn't come from running away to a quiet place. It comes from being fully where you are, no matter what's happening. And this is where everything comes together. You don't need to chase happiness. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to fix life. The only thing you need to do is wake up to what's already here. The mind will always tell you that something is missing, that you need more time, more success, more change. But the mind is a liar. The only thing that has ever existed is this moment, right here, right now. Everything else is just a story. And when you finally see that clearly, you realize that fulfillment was never something to find. It was something to notice. Most people spend their whole lives chasing a version of happiness that doesn't exist. They think it's in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next big moment that will finally make everything feel complete. But the moment they get what they wanted, the feeling fades and they move on to the next chase. It never ends because it was never real to begin with. The mind is always constructing a future where things will finally be right, but the future never comes. It's just a moving illusion. The only thing that exists is now, yet most people live as if life is something that will happen later. But later never arrives. There is no future moment where everything suddenly makes sense. There is only this moment, and whether or not you are paying attention to it. The people who seem the most at peace aren't the ones who have everything, they're the ones who have stopped running. They've realized that nothing outside of them will ever be enough if they can't be enough right now. The richest person in the world can be miserable, and the poorest person can be content, because fulfillment has nothing to do with what you have and everything to do with how you see. The moment you stop looking at life as something to win, something to conquer, something to control, you start to see it for what it actually is. And what it is enough. The mind always wants more, but reality is already complete. The problem isn't life, the problem is the belief that life is missing something. But it's not. It never was. So what do you do with this? You stop waiting. You stop postponing joy for some imaginary future. You stop believing the lie that there's something else you need before you can fully live. You stop thinking that peace is something to find and realize that it's something to allow. Right now, in this very second, you are already whole. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to be different. The only thing that needs to happen is for you to see clearly. Life isn't something you need to fix. Life is something you need to notice. And when you finally do, you realize it was always enough.